What do you do, guys? Hope you guys are well and well kept. And yes, and God has you under His care. So today, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna talk about the Eastern Cape in my beloved country, South Africa, which is a province in the in within the nation of South Africa, where I'm from and where I reside. So this is an urgent call to prayer because it's been put in my spirit as to pay attention to the Eastern Cape, and I also feel there's something more that needs to be in the works because I'll tell you how God also works is that sometimes he does not give you the whole message unto yourself, as in he'll gives you bits and pieces that he may have you in certain situations where he puts in your heart to go meet certain people. And what happened was I had a dream that I was supposed to head to the Eastern Cape, and after that, I was also at a prior dream too that I was to meet someone, and this was a previous employer of mine, previous boss of mine, who's actually from the Eastern Cape, so it's very dear to her. So when I was with her, and we got chatting, and I got to find out what is actually happening within the Eastern Cape, something that she just brought up, and randomly now I had no knowledge of any ongoings in the Eastern Cape. I did hear about the drought, okay, which is the title of this video, is that we need to pray for rain in the Eastern Cape. And now I can only give you what I think is going on, right, as to why the drought is happening. But here's where I need to just go back to the conversation that I had and with my previous boss, and what she said was the fact that the farmers, and she's from a farm in the Eastern Cape, that's where she grew up in, the farmers are now pretty much struggling, and there hasn't been any rain for 7 years. And you know what's funny is that I immediately said, this reminds me of Jacob, and sorry, not Jacob, what am I saying? Joseph and the famine in Egypt, where there was 7 good seasons followed by 7 bad ones. And to think that there's been no rain in certain little towns there in the Eastern Cape. And I know that there was a situation in Port Elizabeth, which is the main city and the biggest city within the province. But everywhere else, it's sort of like just started sporulating in the smaller towns, especially that are even more hit, and the dams are just not getting full. And the last thing I read was an article that said the dams were only like 12% full. So that's quite severe, guys. And so there's an urgent need of prayer that needs to go over there. And I guess God's Spirit is also just turning attention to the Eastern Cape, because I can also parallel this with what happened to me in 2018. And this is not to say that I have any sort of powers. And once again, remember, my journey was, I was thinking here, I'm journeying into becoming um, something prominent, someone prominent within the music industry, which is still something on my life's journey and still something I want to do and something I need to do, right? Not only just want to do, but also, there was also this calling here into ministry at the same time, like I'm just having you guys listen to right now, and hence why I also can't make any moves. It's something I was advised. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I cannot make any moves for anyone, be it in the industry or in ministry, meaning in the industry, as in talking music industry, or in the ministry, without God. So that's just what I do. Everything that I do, I consult God with, because there's just a very high price for someone like me to not, yeah, to not stand on my laurels and to not wait on God before I make any moves. So I want you guys to please just urgently pray for the Eastern Cape and pray for rain. And now I would like to leave you. Well, I'm not going to leave you right now. I just want to leave some scripture with you. And right now it's just a hymn of praise, right? Taken from the book of Psalms, and this is Psalms 135, verse 7. right? And I'm just going to read what it says. He brings storm clouds from the ends of the earth. He makes lightning for the storms, and he brings out the wind from his storeroom. Now, what does that mean? That basically, in the context of this, right? And what's happening in South Africa and everything, and if the Eastern Cape is just not flourishing, it's urgent message from God to say there's something that's not pleasing to Him. Okay, something is just not necessarily pleasing to Him that's happening in the Eastern Cape. I don't know what it is. So this is where I'm just going to interject my opinion, and this is not a fact because I've not had anything confirmed. Normally, when it comes to the rains and everything, it's something to do with leadership, right? So there was a reason, and that's why I was thinking about the story of Joseph. And here you're going to have to turn to Genesis chapter 41, where it speaks about Joseph's actual anointment and as to why he took power. So normally it's about the leadership and the call to leadership, and normally it's either a blessing because the rain is a blessing, and you can see that everywhere in the world there's rain, right? So even with places where people are rife with idol worshipping and worshipping of false gods and everything, God still has His grace on that, right? So in the grace, it's a matter of turning away from certain idols, but it can also happen where if it's an illegitimate leadership, if it's a leader that is not someone who is going to bring the nation closer to God, right? And the nation then decides to elect somebody or something like that, or in South Africa, like we have a democratic system and our whole constitution, therefore, and the way our electorate works is it's a party representative. So the Eastern Cape is also considered a big stronghold for the ANC, so which is the African National Congress. Sorry, I don't know why my words are so tied up. It's the African National Congress. So when the African National Congress sort of took to power and everything, yeah, there were certain good periods with it, but then from the time I think around about 2009 is when things started to take a serious turn in South Africa. So I'm not going to name names right now because I don't want to make this about and digress from the situation. But now also where we have the provinces, every province has a premier, and I'm not too sure if it's got to do with the actual proper premier who was then put into place, let's say, from 2014 there was the elections, right? So 2015 was effectively that's when the drought started, the severe drought. So I'm thinking that because it was so soon after the election that something must have happened that was not pleasing to God, and this has to do with the nation, as in the actual people, right? Who then made a choice of electing somebody who he doesn't seem fit. And I'm starting to think why the Eastern Cape is just not the flourish for one. Okay, that's on the one side of it. But then on the other side of it, it can also be about the spiritual revival and therefore the turn to God. So I'm not too sure how the landscape is in terms of people of faith and people or any prophets over there who normally the prophets are there sent by God to speak to the churches that He will remove their light because the people are not, or the message or whatever that's being spread in that certain church is not pleasing to Him, and the people are not directing themselves to Him in a way that is pleasing. So therefore, yeah, I guess maybe there's just not enough spiritual revival at that individual church level, meaning that now when I'm saying church, I'm not necessarily just talking about the building in itself, but also the people's hearts, because people's hearts is what matters to God the most, right? So if their hearts are just not in it, and therefore their administration, therefore the way that they elect leaders and all of that sort of stuff is because their values are going away from God's values. So I'm also very aware that in the Eastern Cape, it could be a matter of not really realizing the true God of the living God of the Bible. It'll be about perhaps them creating their own gods or idols of themselves. Self idolatry is something that is also quite big and prominent. So yeah, I'm not too sure what it is going on, but I will tell you this story, and it's quite an interesting one. My grandfather, okay, he was from the well, he wasn't from the Eastern Cape as such, but his father's side and I think his mother's side were from the Eastern Cape. So he spent some time in the Ciskei, in the former Ciskei. There was the Transkei and the Ciskei. So I'm not too sure exactly which cities or where the cutoffs are anymore, because we've since turned away, well, not turned away, but necessarily we've sort of done away with the whole homeland standings back in South Africa. I think from about 1994, that's when, yeah, and I'm a 1983 baby, so 1994-ish, that's when we, yeah, did away with the whole homelands and everything when the ANC first came in. So, yeah, there used to be these homelands which belong to the Xhosa people. Now, yeah, the one side of my family is Xhosa. Don't be fooled by my name and surname being completely Tswana. So yeah, people sometimes get that crossed or get shocked by that. But anyway, so one half of my family is Xhosa. So my granddad did say something very interesting, that that while he was a boy, he would be in the Ciskei and everything, and they would experience droughts. Right, it was something that would happen. Then there was always one lady who would always come in there, say a huge prayer, and the rains would then come, and it would start flourishing. So this is why I just felt like, led to that the Psalms 135 verse 7, and also why I'm also going to turn back to Genesis 41, and where I'm also going to go back to the fact that it could be it might need the help of people to intercede, or an intercessor to just come in and sort of sort out the situation. I'm not too sure exactly what it is, but I guess we'll find out in the coming weeks, and I'll find out in the coming weeks, and I'll just communicate with you as to what will happen over there. But please, it's an urgent situation where even the farmers there are like, one lady, Shane, complained about the fact that one luxury that she would want, she just said she wishes she could have shampoo to use to just wash her hair, just to wash her hair. I mean, it's like, the things that you just take for granted, and you just think that, wow, so many things that's happening in the world right now. You think that people are, away from this lockdown and everything that's happening, people are just going through some real things and just not worried about a virus or something. The real things just happening. So this is just one of the reason why this public service announcement really, so to speak, had to happen, and be an urgent call to prayer. And this is where I just want to make an example of why I was thinking about Joseph, right? Because if you look at Genesis 41, and you see that verse 29, where he says, "There'll be 7 years of great plenty in all the land of Egypt, and after that there'll be 7 years of famine, and all the good years will be forgotten, because the famine will ruin the country." So yeah, and again, what he was just illustrating over there was, and we carry on verse 32 of Genesis 41, where he says, "The repetition of your dreams," and this is when he was interpreting the dream of the Pharaoh at the time. Where he said, "The repetition of your dream means that the matter is fixed by God, and that He will make it happen in the near future." So yes, this was just goes to show that when it comes to rain and everything, this is by God. And the Pharaoh at the time wasn't necessarily someone who was serving the God of Israel, or the God of the God of the Bible. They normally had their own idols at the time. But sometimes God can even send a message to those people, because sometimes you respect the position of someone, and then therefore when you go further into verse 37, where the king said, the king and his official approved the plan, which meant that Joseph was then told that there'll be that after he advised that there should be certain storage and mechanisms for the when the 7 good years happen, and because the 7 bad years there'll be nothing. So then he actually said the words quite quite profoundly, where in verse 38 when he said, and he said to them, we will never find a better man than Joseph, a man who has God's spirit in him. Interesting enough. And the king then said to Joseph, God has shown you all of this, so it is obvious that you have greater wisdom and insight than anyone else. So of all these officials and everything, he appointed Joseph. And this is why I was saying that at this point, when Joseph was elevated to being a governor, and this is where it's got to do with the premiers and the certain politicians and everyone everywhere else, where God's grace has been extended in other provinces, but the Eastern Cape has been brutally, affected by this. And I guess Eastern Cape has been notoriously known. Not that we don't have corruption anywhere else, but apparently the Eastern Cape is so out of control in all its spheres. And now it's sad that the farmers and the people who are just in private business are now being affected. But yes, people, please have the Eastern Cape in your prayer right now. And so anyway, I'll be back with another service announcement, and I'll keep you posted as to what happens and whatever the adventure brings me in regards to this. But anyway, guys, please, I will keep you posted, and if there's anything that is communicated to me on a further update regarding this situation, the severe situation that all of a sudden I had no idea until this week that I was going to be overseeing or sort of asked to pay attention to. And again, this is just coming from me as directed by God, and this is just a week that I've had, and I couldn't make this up. I've never been to the Eastern Cape, even though my grandfather, yes, his family ties, like I said over there. My grandfather was actually born in Joburg, like me, but he did spend some time there in the Sky, like I said, and that's the only attachment I've had, is that side of the Xhosa side of my family. But other than that, guys, please send your prayers, and yes, if you're lucky enough to even have to help someone, please do. I'll be looking into certain things, and I'll see where Spirit directs me. Much love and light. Cheers, guys. Bye bye.